sir.
Yes. Happy morning and good morning to Secretary and the Chancellor, Dr. M. Ramchandran, and participants and faculty members and my registrars and dean in charges. We welcome Professor Dr. Ramchandran for the Thought Leader web series 15 on the topic governance issues of our cities and towns, what is lacking and what can be done. Sir, we are very thankful and taking your time, busy time, and giving us the this webinar to our students and the faculty members. May I request Dr. Sanjeev Malviya to introduce Dr. Ramchandran, please.
Thank you, sir. I welcome Secretary Dr. M. Ramachandran, Honorable Chancellor, to this 15th Thought Leader web series, an initiative of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Madhu Vinay. Our university has witnessed many significant academic and administrative achievements under his able leadership, which have transformed the Decay University, Dehradun. The university is now ranked 44th among the top 50 universities globally in industry initiatives in the World University with Real Impact Rankings 2020. These initiatives bear the strong signature support and creative inputs from our registrar, Brigadier Rajiv Sethi, who is working relentlessly for bringing tangible administrative improvements in the university. This is the 15th session of Thought Leaders series of IBS, ICFA University, Dehradun, and there have been thought leaders from diverse fields. The keynote speakers from industry, academics, creative arts have addressed our students and the participants. It is a privilege for all of us that Secretary Dr. M. Ramachandran has accepted our request to be the keynote speaker in today's session. Thank you, sir. Secretary Dr. M. Ramachandran had a distinguished career in the Indian Administrative Services, rising to the positions of Chief Secretary in the state and Secretary in the Ministry of Urban Development at the center. His 4-year tenure in urban development was noteworthy for the able stewardship of the National Urban Renewal Mission and the many new initiatives he took to rejuvenate Indian cities. He was the chairman of Delhi Metro also. His wide experience in and deep insights into the complexities of urban governance in India still keep him active in urban sector, policy deliberations, dialogues, workshop, and national international conferences. He chairs the Indian Heritage Cities Foundation and among other assignments is independent director on the boards of Cochin Smart City Mission and Delhi International Airport. He is the author of 9 books, and his next book is on how to bring governments under and people closer. He is Chancellor of our university and chairs the Board of Governors. A warm welcome to you, sir. I invite you, sir, for your views on governance issues of our cities and towns, what is lacking and what can be done. That is the part 1 of the 2 lecture series which sir will be taking. Over to Dr. M. Ramachandran, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. Good morning to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Madhu Vinay, faculty members, and those who are associated with this webinar, and greetings to all the participants. Probably some of you might have heard urban is sort of a passion with me. So when the Vice Chancellor suggested that I talk to all of you, I thought nothing better than talking about governance issues of our cities and towns. At the beginning, I must make it clear, we use the word cities and towns. Cities probably for the very large ones and towns for the small ones, though one cannot really find a definition of this in any of our documents where local governance is concerned. I'll be referring to some basic figures. Some would be facts probably known to you, but that would be required to set the pace for the 2-part talk I'll be making. As per the census of 2011, we have 4,041 statutory towns in the country and 3,894 census towns. So we are really talking about the third level of governance, the first level being the central government, the next level being the state governments, and the third level, which is for urban local bodies and for villages, the panchayats. Local governments were established in India since the 18th century, so it's not anything new in recent times. If I go into a little bit of history, in 1793, the local institutions were set up in Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, that early. In 1888, there was the emergence of elected government in Bombay. 1919 saw the Montague-Chelmsford reforms. Urban local government responsibility was transferred from officials to elected representatives as per this provision. And Jawaharlal Nehru was mayor of Allahabad from 1924 to 26. Among other veterans, Chittaranjan Das was mayor in Calcutta in 1926. And in recent times, if you recall, Mr. Fadnavis, who became chief minister, was earlier the mayor of Nagpur. There is a saying about the Latin American countries that one who becomes a mayor is definitely becoming the next candidate for the presidency of the country. So that is one scenario. In our country, probably we still haven't reached that stage, but that could be the way forward at some time in the future. 1950, our constitution assigned urban local government responsibility to state legislatures, and that's important. Forming local governments, urban local governments, that is the responsibility of the state government. Local government is a subject assigned to the states under entry 5 of the state list of the constitution. So it went on for some time. We had local bodies. It existed in some form or the other, but there was a thinking that local bodies have to be given certain powers, because if that is really the third level of governance, they should be entrusted with certain responsibilities. And ideally, if the principle of subsidiarity applies, those subjects which can be better managed at the local should be assigned to these local bodies. That thinking was going on. But as I said, it was all up to each individual state government to take a call on this. It was not for the central government, because constitutionally this was a subject which got assigned to the state governments. During the period 1989 to 91, a bill to grant constitutional status to urban local government institutions was defeated in Parliament 2 times. So it could not go through. So that is the gravity of the effort made, and it could not go through, and because of that, constitutional position could not be given. It was the 1992 enactment of the Constitutional 74th Amendment Act, which gave local bodies a position as far as the constitutional requirement is concerned. Part 9A of the Constitution added, which provided for municipalities, ward committees in municipalities, a 5-year term for each municipality or urban local body, and mandatory election every 5 years through State Election Commission. So the earlier practice of dismissing local governments, holding elections whenever they felt like, the state government felt like, that was done away with. A 5-year term was assured, and elections were to be conducted in a more impartial and independent manner through the state election commissions. And if you notice, below the corporation or the municipal council or such bodies, there was also a provision made in the constitutional amendment to have what is called ward committees, so that the administration is taken closer to the people. You know, ward normally is represented by a councillor. Councillors form the urban body. So there was a provision for ward committees as well. And a provision was also made for state finance commissions to review the financial position of these local governments. So the state finance commissions became important. We always had the central finance commission. We had the state finance commissions also, but its role became important in the context of this constitutional provision. A 12th schedule was added to the constitution, in which 18 functions were listed, which may be assigned to the urban local bodies. Now, this is what is important. The constitution was amended, provision was made, and a list of 18 subjects was made, out of which the states could decide, state governments could decide whether all those functions would be entrusted to each and every urban local body, or some would be assigned. And if you are familiar with the list 18 functions as far as urban local bodies are concerned, it has urban planning, regulation of land use, roads and bridges, water supply, and various such areas, which is all listed there. The amendment, the constitutional amendment, became effective, the law, in the year 1993, because there is a process one has to go through. So power to constitute local governments is clearly with the states. And that's why we keep hearing in different states, one more local body added. They notify such and such place to be an urban local body, or they upgrade a municipal council to a corporation. These are all decisions which are taken by the state governments. The center does not have anything to do with that. What is important here is Article 243W, which gives powers to the state legislatures to endow the municipalities with powers. So it's again done through a legislative provision of the state government as to what all powers would be with them. Similarly, the state legislature has to authorize the urban bodies as to what taxes, duties, tolls, fees, etc., which they can collect. So you can see two limiting factors here. One, the state decides which place or town will be an urban local body. Two, what are the financial powers which this urban local body will have, of course, in continuation of the functions which are assigned to them. So normally in these discussions, we keep hearing about three words: funds, functions, and functionaries. So what are the functions assigned? Where would the funds come from? And who are the functionaries who work with the urban local body? This is important because, as we know about the state governments, the state government comes with the budget every year. There are some new taxes imposed, some amendments made, and the state presents what is going to be the total revenue and what is going to be the total expenditure. In that, of course, they account for what will come from the federal government or the central government, but otherwise, what is it that they are going to do to make the state run the way it should be run, taking care of the employees and taking care of the welfare programs, taking up new development programs, and for the entire state, what is it that they are going to do, in which they can include urban areas as well. But ideally, they are not supposed to be going into those subjects which are assigned to the urban local bodies. So states authorize local bodies as to which of the functions listed would be with them, any or all of them. State legislatures has to pass a law, and that's why we keep hearing about the municipal acts, and we have the municipal acts for different states of different years, which is in position, which actually governs the functioning of the urban local body. Thus, local government rules, responsibilities, and functions differ in several respects between states and across the country. Even when functions are devolved, government control is pervasive. So each state takes a call as to what are the powers to be delegated, and even then they can also have certain conditions where the state will still continue to have a role. So that's why we keep seeing this anomalous situation in cities that if you approach a local body, they'll say, oh, I cannot do this because I have to get the state government's okay. So there are situations like that which are also inbuilt in the scheme of things. Very little additional empowerment of municipal bodies after the 74th Amendment. See, the center made the amendment, it was made a law, it was left to the states to move further. Ideally, a state could have legislated or improved upon its municipal legislature and clearly laid down all 18 functions will go to the local body, and this is the staff, additional staff support which will become available, and these are the areas from which they can collect revenue, taxes or whatever it is, and they can be on their own. But that does not mean that the state will not part with their funds. State will continue to part with their funds. And if there are grievances of the urban local bodies, they could take it up in once every 5 years when the state finance commissions are constituted. So the Ministry of Urban Development, which is the nodal ministry for governance of urban local bodies at the Government of India level. Now, we must remember that this is not a ministry which can directly interfere in the working of urban local bodies of the states. Basically, the Central Ministry of Urban Development, now called the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, plays an advisory role. And also, in recent times, the center takes up new program schemes for the cities, and that funding flows from this ministry, this nodal ministry, Urban Development or Housing and Urban Affairs. So normally, the Central Ministry only issues advisories. They do not issue directions to states. They'll send requests to state governments. This should be done in this manner. And it is for the state to take it up further with the urban local bodies and take it forward. So the Ministry of Urban Development, then Ministry of Urban Development, it subsequently became Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry, circulated in 2003 what is called a model municipal law, because the municipal legislation still then had various lacunae because it was framed in a scenario where the constitutional provision of an urban local body was not there. The functions were not listed in this manner as 18 functions. So the ministry formulated a model municipal law which each state could go in for, and they could either amend or go in for the new law, which would have brought in a lot of uniformity as far as the working of our urban local bodies is concerned. So states were expected to reform their municipal laws to establish strong local government and service delivery organizations. The model law, which was circulated, also provides for establishing a state municipal regulatory commission to determine user charges and standards for services, plus avenues for private sector participation. Now, some of us who live in cities and towns crib about the tax we have to pay, the property tax. It's determined, basically guided by the state governments, but by the local government. Similarly, the charges we have to pay, there would be professional tax, and in some places, they would collect some additional money for maintenance of sewers and solid waste management. So whether all this should happen or it should be within a certain limit, there should be a body where people can go to and raise their grievances. So the model law also provided for a regulator, which is independent of the administration, so that people can go there and get their grievances redressed. So what is the ground situation now? Multiple municipal acts in use in most states. One for corporations, another for municipalities. Like the Mumbai Municipal Corporation Act 1888. It was there. Bombay Provincial Municipal Corporations Act 1949. So in a single state, you will find more than one legislation which governs the corporations or the other municipal bodies. For Mumbai, it's a separate arrangement. That's why there is a separate legislation which continues. A study some years back showed that a unified municipal law for municipal governance existed only in 7 states. Only 4 states formulated what is called a unified municipal law based on the model municipal law, and states like Arunachal, Bihar, Rajasthan, and Sikkim. Now, we know that Arunachal, Sikkim are not states which have a great presence of urban local bodies, but Bihar, of course, has, Rajasthan, of course, has. So this is the attention paid by the states to what went from the central government as far as bringing about improvements in legislation is concerned. And it is up to the state government. You may ask a question that, why can't the state government be hauled up for this? There is no system of hauling up in our constitutional scheme of things. So the center keeps requesting the states have to take note of it. During conferences of chief ministers, these are taken up. From time to time, request letters or advisories are sent. And there is certain amount of building up of public will also, which leads to a situation where what is desirable is taken up. Now, a look at the Indian cities and urban local bodies. What does it look like? As I said, statutory towns, we have 4,041 as per the 2011 census. That means that many urban local bodies exist, whether it could be a corporation or a municipal council or a Nagar Panchayat or a town area panchayat. So there are 3 or 4 categories of local bodies which are in existence. But as I mentioned, there are some 3,894 census towns also in this country. What is a census town? This is a definition which the census process provides. So every 10 years, 2011, this was defined and listed. 2021, again, it will happen. So according to the census organization, where there is a minimum population of 5,000, at least 75% of the workers are in non-agricultural activity. And when the town has a density of 400 persons per square kilometer, then they term it as a census town. Now, the anomaly is, though the census organization has termed 3,800 plus towns as census towns, very many of them continue to be villages as far as the state government scheme of things is concerned. What does that mean? On record, it is still a village. So the level of administration is different. But for all practical purposes, they have assumed the shape of a town. And ideally, they should have been notified as an urban local body. Now, just to give 1 or 2 examples, West Bengal had 780 census towns, is the highest number as far as the 2011 census is concerned. And, and there is a place called Dabgram, if I got it right, Dabgram, which had a population of 1,19,040. And that continues to be a census town for census terminology, but for all practical purposes, it's still a village. So I'm just taking the population figure. You would have come across municipal bodies which has a population of 10,000, 20,000, 25,000. They have been notified as urban municipal bodies. But Dabgram at that stage with this population was still a census town. And in West Bengal, they did not modify many of this. They continued to be census towns. Another state, Kerala, had a place called Edattala, which had a population of 77,811. And that also was classified as a census town and probably continues to be a census town. So there is this anomaly. See, these towns assume the characteristic of a municipal area, construction-wise, activities-wise, but since the regulations would be much, much simpler, unorganized development of the town takes place. And ultimately, at some stage one day, if they are notified as an urban body, we see the type of problems which we see in most of our cities. Lot of unauthorized construction, later unauthorized colonies are regularized, slums come up, the road width is not there, there is no proper sewage system in the town, cleanliness arrangement is not sound, there is no organized city transport and things like that. Now, on the one extreme, we have the Greater Mumbai urban agglomeration with 1.84 crore population. And the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai has 1.24 crore. So this is one extreme of our urban scenario, probably the largest urban body which we have in our country. And this city has a huge, unusually high urban density also. Ability of Indian cities to accommodate such huge number of people, that is remarkable. Mumbai being a classic example. Mumbai metropolitan region has a density of 4,080 per square kilometer. The administrative city of Mumbai has a density of 27,348 per square kilometer. The inner city has a population density of 34,269. So these are the different types of densities, and that's why we keep coming across huge problems of management as far as a city like Mumbai is concerned. And though in our conversations we often refer to what is called tier 1, tier 2 cities, actually there is no definition of a tier 1 city as far as the terminologies are concerned. We normally refer to 4 million plus population as tier 1, 1 to 4 million as tier 2, etc. But the census classification is class 1, class 2, class 3, etc. Class 1 towns would be 1 lakh population and above. Class 2 would be 50,000 to 99,999 and so on. India's annual capital spending in these urban areas is something like $17 per capita on urban infrastructure. And there is a report of the Mckinsey which says that we have to hike it to a level of $134 per capita per year if we are to ensure certain basic levels of urban infrastructure service. So that is one part of the picture. Cities generate between, now what is the importance of cities in our scheme of things? Most of you who are economic students would have read about agglomeration economies and world over, how urbanization has led to the process of improvement in growth and development and how countries got developed and things like that. So I'm not entering into a debate of urban versus rural because I believe urban areas have a role to play and they will continue to play that role. Though there is a question mark which has come up during this current corona season to what extent the cities have been able to manage and respond, but that is slightly a different issue to be discussed. So the importance of cities, the tax revenue, the entire tax revenue of the country, 80 to 85% of the tax revenue comes from our cities. Cities will account for about 70% of all new jobs created by the year 2030. So new job creation also happens in the cities and the adjoining areas. And again, by the year 2030, these cities will generate about 70% of our GDP. So that is the role cities are playing in our economy. And that is something which cannot be denied or discarded. Now, what about the financial issues or the resource issues of our urban local bodies? As I said, they have limited resource raising authority as far as our urban bodies are concerned. It is under the control of states. They own the revenues of the urban local bodies own. It's little over half of their total revenue. Broadly, if you look at the picture for the country, their own revenue, what they generate is little over 50% only. total revenue itself of the urban local bodies is only 0.9% of the GDP. And this compares not so well with certain other countries where it is 3%, 4%, 5% and all. And also in a country like UK, 70 to 80% of the city revenues come from the central grants. So there is a role the center has to play, and there it is more the federal government. And in our case, it is more the state governments. So there is a role the state governments also have to play. So there has to be clarity as to what is the fund flow which is going to happen from the state or the central government to the local bodies. And the local bodies should be able to account for the remaining revenue which they need to run the city smoothly, ensuring basic services, ensuring basic comforts to all the residents of the city. Majority of the service sectors, GDP, it originates from our urban areas. That's also something which probably you must be getting familiar with. And I'll also add another piece of information here, a survey of some big 21 cities, which was done in 2016, showed that only the 4 cities of Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, and Pune generated income more than 50%. The rest of the cities all generated income less than 50% of the total revenue. And it includes Chennai, which could generate only 28%, Patna, which could generate only 17%, Kolkata, which could generate only 40%, Ahmedabad, which could generate only 41%. So this is as far as revenue generation by our urban local bodies is concerned. Those who are interested should continue this scenario with the state scenario. There is talk about FRBM, there is talk about deficits and things like that, but states are supposed to manage their finances in a proper manner, and whatever debt they can take, whatever additional support they can get, it's dependent on how well they manage. Similarly, for local bodies, there is no regime available where it sorts of requires them to follow a certain discipline and also raise resources for what is to be done locally at least. There was mention about municipal bonds some time back. This is something which is not very popular in our country. The entire US system runs, the urban governance system runs on bonds. They generate so much income. In our country, we started with an effort. There is a little bit of confusion. Some say it was first introduced in Bangalore in 1997, but it's actually Ahmedabad, which is often quoted as the first city which went in for a municipal bond system. Subsequently, Nashik, Calcutta, Ludhiana, Nagpur, Madurai, Hyderabad, and a select number of other cities also went in for bond issues. But that is mostly a one-time effort or two-time effort and a limited amount. It's not a continuing factor as far as our urban local bodies are concerned. And as I mentioned, compared to the 4,000 plus urban bodies we have, it's a small number of maybe 10 to 20 or so, which go for a bond issue. But for a bond issue, you all understand that there has to be that required confidence level. It has to be part of a scheme of things where the return is assured, and there has to be a certain guarantee. So that is also a complex arena as far as our Indian municipal bond system is concerned. Cities were supposed to go in for credit rating. Some went for that. It was basically initiated in an active manner during the National Urban Renewal Mission. Pune had a rating of AA plus in the year 2017. Delhi also was in that category. Ahmedabad, Vizag had a AA rating. And cities like Mumbai, Patna, Ranchi, Surat, Dehradun, Bangalore, Chandigarh, there is no rating available. Either they did not participate in the process. That could be the reason there is no rating, credit rating of these cities which are available. Then another issue of the local bodies is low spending on operations and maintenance. It's one thing to take up new projects, and you would have seen populist factors require new projects to be taken up. But what about those who are already there? If you're not maintaining a system, a water supply system, you're not maintaining a sewage system, then there will be more issues and more money would require to be spent. So it is not popular with our urban local bodies to spend on the maintenance of these assets which have been set up. Maintenance of existing assets has remained largely unattended by urban local bodies. Any local body, you can try to find out what is the requirement and what is the provision which you make. The answer would be somewhat negative. So that's why when a high-powered expert committee was appointed some 10 years back to look into the financial requirements of our local bodies, they came up with a figure of 19.9 lakh crore to be invested on O&M alone out of a total of 39.2 lakh crore, which they had listed as the requirement for providing basic services in all our cities and towns. So and something close to 50% was a requirement for O&M alone. So you can imagine any city which generates income, how keen they would be to say that I have spent this money on maintaining, because that probably does not yield any result for them. Salaries and wages account for 54% of the total municipal expenditure on an average. So, I mean, there are vacancies, but there are already people who are working. Whether their contribution is positive, productive, that's a different issue. Salary bill as high as 80.4% in the state of Madhya Pradesh. So you can imagine, after spending on the salaries, where is the money left for spending on other development features? The level of aggregate municipal spending is low in India. The 14th Finance Commission came out with a figure of 1,513 rupees per capita per annum in the year 2007-18. Another problem with the urban local bodies is we don't have up-to-date data readily available for all across the country. So that's why I'm relying on some of the published reliable sources. So the 14th Finance Commission said this, and whereas per capita annual aggregate revenue was rupees 1,430 in the same year. So in a way, 1,430 is what you get, but you spend 1,530, and this is on limited areas. So 2.3% of the GDP, this type of expenditure is at a level of 2.3% of GDP in Australia, little over 3% in Germany. Again, figures for the same year. So there is huge neglect of urban sector, which has resulted in huge service deficiencies in our cities. Some of you may ask the question, what about water supply, per capita availability, water access to everyone, equity issues, cleanliness, and things like that. So the problem is the local bodies do not have command over resources to take care of all that they are supposed to. So it's a dilemma. In the beginning, I talked about the principle of subsidiarity, 18 functions being entrusted to the local bodies, but then we have a situation that even the local bodies which are functioning, they do not succeed in providing a satisfactory performance as far as what they're supposed to do. Urban local bodies do not have any required capacity. And I had chaired a working group on urban capacity building, and we had recommended some about 10 years back. The report was in September 2011. We had recommended some 23 reforms to be taken up at the central government level, 8 reforms at the state government level, 1 at the urban local body level, 1 at an institutional level, 1 at the civil society level, and another 22 for urban transport. So it was a comprehensive recommendation made, including what needs to be done or how the civil society should be associated with the process. But as it happens, most of our reports, they are probably read in the beginning. After that, since it is difficult to implement, one keeps buying time or one keeps shifting the responsibility. As you can see in the case of the Administrative Reforms Commission, if you look up the action taken, almost all recommendations which need to be acted upon, the central government has reported that states have been requested to take action. In a way, right, because the center cannot take action on those, it is the states which have to. But the question is, why do we have a report, and why do we have a situation where nothing really improves? Expertise in areas like city planning, finance, project management, transport, environment, e-governance, these are all lacking as far as urban local bodies are concerned. There is no regular training opportunities available for all the personnel who are working in the urban bodies. You would agree that it's one thing to get trained at the time of recruitment, but as times change, as requirements change, as demands change, the staff also have to be oriented to work in a manner which is conducive with what the people expect of an urban local body, which is more close to the people. No scope to depend on professional institutions, so they engage consultants in a limited manner whenever some projects are to be taken up. And these are temporary affairs because the consultant would act for a particular interest, a particular point in time, but that does not really add to the strength of the city, so to say. We do not have empowered mayors. Direct election was introduced in some states, direct election of mayor, but it was also done away with in some states. Probably it's only states like UP and Madhya Pradesh which have some sort of directly elected mayors in some of the cities. In some other cities, they did not provide for directly elected chairperson in other local bodies, which is large in number. Whereas cities like London, New York, they always have directly elected mayors, and that's how the cities are run. Now, again, as far as responsibilities are concerned, water is a subject in some states which is interest to the state water bodies. So the local body does not have much to do. I recall an instance when I went to a state and asked the local body, what is the non-revenue water? That is the water which is not accounted for in your local body area. They could not respond because they said that power is with the state water. That data would be with the state water board. So that's the state of affairs. Where it suits the government, they keep these functions to the state level departments. Public health engineering department is another department which exists in some states, which takes care of water supply in the entire state. Transport is another subject which is not really interested to the urban local bodies. So they continue to be with the state and the state road transport corporation. Road transport corporations are more interested in running intercity and interstate services than concentrate on city buses. So fragmented governance across municipalities. Parastatals, you would have come across a good number of parastatals, state departments. In a city like Bangalore, there is a municipal corporation, there is a development authority, there is a water supply board, there is a metropolitan transport corporation, there is a metro corporation, and there is a BESCOM for electricity supply. So these are all the different bodies and they do not report to the urban body. So that is another scenario which we have in our country where these are all fragmented. Absence of systematic citizen participation. If you recall, when the Urban Renewal Mission was taken up, there was a provision to provide for a community participation law, which means you should provide for that legally so that people can participate in the process. Most of the states sort of showed that they have done the legislation, but it was ineffective. In that community participation law, a provision was also to be made below the ward committees. I mean, ward committees could be at the level of, say, 7,000 voters or even 50,000 voters in some extreme cases in very large cities. That is the domain of a councillor. Below the ward council, each state was supposed to provide for what is called an area sabha at the polling booth level of, say, 1,000 voters, so that people can be closer to governance system in the local bodies. Andhra Pradesh provided for that. I understand Guwahati probably has this provision. Most of the other states did little bit of dilly-dally, and in effect, area sabhas are not existing and functional in almost all the states. I'll take another example of a local body, Hubli Dharwad in Karnataka, where the population is the criteria for determining sanctioned staff strength of the municipal corporation. It's not that any local body can recruit any number of people or professionals, because there are restrictions from state government. So this Hubli Dharwad has a population of 9.43 lakh, and their staff is divided into 4 categories, A, B, C, D, and the total sanction strength. There has to be a sanction strength, so you can do recruitment only according to that. So 3,794 is the sanction strength. This is when the AG did a performance audit, and against the 3,794, the vacancies amounted to almost 1,000. And that continues for years because you don't have the wherewithal to recruit, there is no approval given, and you can't find the funds to provide for this. An annual survey of India City Systems 2017 found that 35% is the average staff vacancy in our urban local bodies. And in the year 2015, vacancy was 64% in Patna, 52% in Bangalore, 21% in Mumbai, and 14% in Varanasi. So that is the position of vacancies, and they continue for quite some time. Moving on to what are some of the key issues. Many would say slums, it's a key issue because large number of slums come into existence, and the census of 2011, that's the only authentic information we have, because we have no other system of collecting information about cities problems and issues. It is census which provides, and it provides once in 10 years. So sadly, we'll have to wait for the census outcome of 2021, which will come in 22 or 23 or 24, to understand the gravity of problems of our cities in some of these matters. Now, slums. There are varying reports about Mumbai. Some say Mumbai is occupied. Mumbai has more than 50% of its population as slum dwellers. So I even go to the extent of saying that Mumbai ideally should be governed by the representatives of slum dwellers, because if they are in majority, they should they should be deciding the fate of the city. But census says it is not that figure. We have to go by the census figures. So as I said, out of the 4,041 statutory towns which we have, 2,613 had reported slums. That means a very large number of cities and small towns had slums in existence. So that's a question. 6.54 crore people live in slums. That is the census figure. Which means 1.39 crore households. And 37% increase happened over a 10-year period as far as the slum population is concerned. So that is a big issue as far as our cities are concerned. 1 in every 6 person living in a slum. How desirable is it? And what can we say about our urban development process? That's a big question mark. When it comes to housing, it is estimated that 40 to 60% of urban dwellers, or more than 130 million people, live in substandard housing. Those who are from very large towns or those who have visited would know slums. About Mumbai, Dharawir, it was reported 8 to 10 to 12 or 13, 14 persons living in one single room apartment, because that is what they can afford. So similarly, even though people may have some sort of a house, but they are all substandard conditions. Water will not be available, the roof may not be proper, and there are things like that. So interstate migration is close to 9 million annually. And that was a figure for the period between 2011 and 16. We keep talking about the increase in population, partly due to migration also. Yes, there is. And this is the migration figure which was reported in the Economic Survey of 2017. So urban housing shortage, whatever figure we have, which was done quite some time back, it said 1.87 crore households is the shortage. And it was estimated that nearly out of this shortage, the people belonging to economically weaker section and low income, they formed 95% of this total figure of shortage. So under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, it's planned to build some 20 million urban houses. One has to see how it will really happen and how it will mean a solution to the slum issue. Another issue is that of master plans. There is a discussion going on whether that's the correct term to use. Some people would prefer to move to what is called a development plan or a spatial and development plan, because master plan, people say, is a very restrictive title. So against this 7,900 plus statutory and census towns I mentioned, it's only some 2,100 cities, towns which have master plans notified. The rest do not have master plans. So construction happens, might is right, people influence the local bodies, get things done. So there could be all sorts of construction violating various norms, nothing much would be done. That is the haphazard sort of construction activity or development activity which is going on. Now, again, if you look at, I mentioned this figure of 2,100 plus master plans. Of course, we have small towns which with population up to 50,000, some 7,400 of them. Medium towns, 50,000 to 5 lakh, about 372. So, of course, the very large megapolis is only 3 and metro cities are only 50. So if we travel down this pyramid, so to say, 350, then 43, then 372, and then the large number is 7,400. So all of them having some sort of a master plan, and also if it covers the adjoining area, nothing like it to ensure regulated development. There is no interrelationship established among city development plans, different types of plans which come into existence, comprehensive mobility plan, city sanitation plan, slums redevelopment plan, disaster management plan. So all sorts of plans exist. One does not talk to the other when they are formulated. Also, master plans view cities in isolation from the larger region. So it will be limited to the limits, and one is not concerned what happens just outside. And that type of haphazard development we can see in large number of our Indian cities. You may ask a question that if there are so many problems, what did we do about this, or what have we done about this? As I said, it is not that we don't have committees, we don't have institutions which go into these issues. Parliamentary Standing Committee established, Parliamentary Standing Committee studies, discusses the annual budget of the central ministry every year, and issues are discussed. In the states, there are urban development budgets, there will be standing committees, the House also discusses issues, and people's representatives also raise problems to the higher level, what is lacking in a particular city or town. All this keeps happening, and there are committees appointed also, which look into all these issues. So I'll just refer to some of the more important committees references in recent times. As I mentioned, there was a high-powered expert committee appointed by the Ministry of Urban Development. The appointment happened during my time when I was there. And they came up with a comprehensive recommendation as to what needs to be done to improve our Indian cities. And their report came in March 2011. And as I said, they have made lots of recommendations. One of the recommendations was to have what is called a local bodies finance list in the constitution. There is a central list, there is a state list, but there is no local bodies list. So it is up to the state finance commissions to take note of the requirements of the urban local bodies. And for the Central Finance Commission, they can make a recommendation about grants. But there is no regular flow ensured as far as the third level of governance is concerned. So this discussion has been going on for some time, that there has to be a local bodies finance list. That committee also said increase investment in urban infrastructure from 0.7% of GDP to 1.1% by 2031-32. Now, it's easy to say increase investment, but one has to find the resources and one has to find the projects also to take it up. So they recommended a total investment of 39.2 lakh crores by the year 2031. That's in a 20-year period and covering 8 sectors of urban governance. And their recommendations cover also areas like governance, what needs to be changed, capacity building, what further needs to be done, financing, what all could be done. There was a private initiative called the Mckinsey Report, which came out in 2010, which again studies the issues and problems of our cities and towns. And they specifically stated India's current approach will lead to urban decay. I mean, we seem to ignore, sideline many of the issues. Certain things are done, many other things are sidelined. And these do not become issues when elections happen, because other larger issues take ground, and the local issues with regard to whether per capita availability of water is there or not, whether cleanliness is proper or not, whether the entire town is covered through a sewage network, whether there is city transport organized locally. These issues are not really deliberated, except maybe some references happen during the local body elections. So their recommendation, the Mckinsey Report recommendations relate to funding. They said spend something like $2.2 trillion over a 20-year period to first make up what has not been done, and also to reach a certain level, because those cities and towns are the generators of economic activity in the country. On governance, they said devolve powers to cities, have directly elected mayors and things like that. On planning also, they made some recommendations. Sectoral practices, they referred to affordable housing, climate change issues, distributed urbanization and things like that. Then there was a 12th plan steering committee. When the plan process was still going on, there was a steering committee which was formulated. Every time when a plan is to be formulated, a steering committee comes into existence, which looks into all problems of the cities, towns, and comes up with recommendations so that the center can provide that type of outlay for the urban sector. So in November 2012, when the steering committee gave the recommendation, very broadly, it's detailed. So they said extend the term of the mayor to 5 years. There are some cities where the mayor is only for 1 year, some where it is for 2.5 years. So it keeps changing. So they said have a standard term of 5 years. Incentivize strategic densification. Now this is another big debate going on. Multilateral agencies, when they come and discuss, they say, why don't you go multi-storied? Why do you limit to ground and first only? You should have multi-storied construction. But then the answer to that is the carrying capacity also has to be there. Then multi-story construction may be okay. And those have to be green buildings. There are issues relating to supply of electricity, water, and things like that. So incentivize strategic densification, substantially increase investment in urban sector. That's also a recommendation made. Introduce local bodies finance list. This steering committee also said the same thing. Enforce constitutionally sharing by state governments, that there should be a provision in the constitution itself that states should share this much of revenue with the local bodies, and create a municipal cadre. and have a national mission on capacity building. The municipal cadre is a very difficult issue. States can decide what type of cadre structure they will have. And it's very rarely that states revise the cadre structure, so one shouldn't be surprised. I recall days when small town areas in the state of Uttar Pradesh used to be basically run by a person who is called a Bakshi. Now, Bakshi is more or less old soul as far as that town area is concerned, because the town area does not have the capacity to employ large number of people and have different subjects allocated to different people. There may be one junior engineer also. So between them and these 2 or 3 functionaries, the town area activities are run. We also had the second Administrative Reforms Commission making recommendations. They talked about a unified metropolitan transport authority should come into existence in all mega cities. Metropolitan planning committees for all 5 million plus cities. That's another level to be added. Metropolitan Environment Authority for all 5 million plus cities, and a Metropolitan Police Authority for 1 million plus population cities to oversee community policing. So these recommendations also were there, and then I'll also make a reference to the National Development Council Subcommittee. That is, National Development Committee consists of the Chief Ministers. So in October 2011, this committee, which is a real powerful body, if I could put it like that, that committee said empower local bodies by devolution of all 18 functions. I mean, the same state chief ministers who are supposed to do it, they became part of a committee and they said all 18 functions should be devolved to them. Metropolitan Planning Committee and Unified Metropolitan Authority should be set up. Metropolitan Transport Authority should be set up. Make councillors and officers accountable. A cadre of municipal employees should come into existence. Urban local bodies should prepare strategies keeping long-term infrastructure in view. Service provider functions could be assigned to a corporate entity. I mean, taking note of the problems which local bodies face and unsatisfactory performance as far as service delivery is concerned, they made a recommendation that this could be corporatized, say water supply or waste management could be corporatized with accountability. A municipal service regulatory commission should come into existence, and every urban local body must have a ward plan budget. For each ward, there should be a plan, and city management should be left to professionals. So these are the recommendations made by the National Development Council Committee. So these are some of the important committees which went into most of these problems and made recommendations. The question is, what happens to all these recommendations? As I said earlier, yes, these are made. Governments find it difficult. If these are made available to the central government, they find it difficult to act because central government, as I said, cannot really dictate this is how it is to be done. They can tell the states that this is what needs to be done, and each state has to take a call. So the 27 or 28 state governments individually have to decide what I'll do with my local bodies and what more powers I'll give, what representation do I want for those people there. So that is how the local governance system, as far as the urban part is concerned, functions in our country. I decided to divide this talk into two, that is what is lacking, and also talk about what can be done. I thought as youngsters, you should all become aware of what our city is, what our problems are, and why do we see a whole lot of problems as far as our city is concerned. I have been very much concerned about when I see cities, neat cities with no proper footpath, cities without cycle tracks. We talk about encouraging cycling, walking, but then there are no cycle tracks, and if one ventures out with a cycle, one doesn't know what will happen to the person concerned. Pollution, there are issues like that. So we become conscious and aware. Water bodies, we see either water bodies disappearing or problems coming up with our water bodies. Either they are encroached upon and no one says a thing. Delhi is a city which has, I would say, I always used to say, I don't know whether the figure is the same, little over 30% is unauthorized construction, little over 30% is slums. So that is how the regulated development of Delhi happened. More than 60% or close to 70% going against the provisions of law. I mean, some due to natural reasons, because we can talk about slums, but then where do people go when they come into cities, when their income is limited, and there is no housing available? So naturally slums will come up. So I think I'll complete my first part at this stage, And for the moderators, I leave 3 or 4 questions to which probably you could get response from the participants. They could write into you. And before we start the next part, or as we work out, once I conclude the next part of the lecture, we could look into responses which have come to these questions. People can ask other questions also. I'm not saying there is any limit on that. They can raise questions. I don't know how many questions have already come up. I can't see it on my screen. I don't think questions have come up. You will allow them to raise questions later, is it?
There are a few questions, sir.
Okay, Sanjeev. So you'll compile them for me. But
Yes.
I'll raise 4 questions for them to respond. One is, why are urban infrastructure services deficient or lagging behind? I mean, you have listened to this, you have some experience of the cities and towns. So my first question is, why are urban infrastructure services deficient or lagging behind? The second question is, why do slums come up? Why do slums come up? Professors may pardon me, I'm not looking for very detailed responses, but
Yes, sir.
short, crisp responses. I mean, we can elaborate on it subsequently, but the responses required are very short, crisp. Third question is, should all census towns become notified urban local bodies? Should all census towns become notified urban local bodies? And the fourth question is, should we have directly elected mayors, chairpersons? Should we have directly elected mayors or chairpersons? I distinguish because mayors are for corporations, chairpersons are for municipal councils. And if so, why? If not, why? A very short, crisp answer. So Dr. Sanjeev, you got the 4 questions. If there is anything missing, we can talk later. So these are the 4 questions I'm raising for the participants. And there is one question I would like the moderator to ask and get a response. The question I left to you. Mr. Vice Chancellor, he's on mute. The question I left to you, you could raise it and complete it in that time.
Sanjay Malviya,
Yes,
Dr. Sanjay Malviya, you please raise the question. Name of the mayor and chairperson of their city.
Okay.
And limited time.
Okay. So here is a question for all the participants. And the question is, who is the mayor or chairperson of your city or town? You can write the name of the city and the mayor or the chairperson. You will get 15 seconds to answer it. I'll repeat the question. The question is, who is the mayor or the chairperson of your city or town? You can reply by writing in the chat box the answer.
Very
Your
good.
city-
Kolkata responses come, I find.
Okay, that's pretty quick. I think he's close to his mayor or the chairperson there, mayor there, sir. I'll repeat once more and we'll wait for the response. Who is the mayor or the chairperson of your city or town? You have to write the name of the city and the name of the person. 15 seconds for it.
I think some of them are very fast.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. I mean, I'm glad our youngsters are aware of what is it like. Only thing is, Dr. Sanjeev, you should verify these answers.
Yes,
And
sir.
at the next talk, you could probably announce who did it first or shortest possible time. This is important. Awareness is important. And I'm glad some really responded real fast.
And that also shows that they are pretty interested and engrossed in the session, sir.
In the system.
The session which you are taking, sir, the session.
Okay. Now I leave it to you, Dr. Sanjeev.
Right.
Right.
So we have a few of the answers which have come up from the
Yeah, that
student.
you can check subsequently because the answer has to be correct also. We cannot say now. So we'll have to check the name given whether it is correct or not.
We'll check it and we'll announce the winner in the next
That's right.
part 2 of this series, sir. Now, there are, if you permit, sir, there are few questions the students have asked. If you permit, we'll take the questions. Is it okay?
If time permits, I can do that. It's up to you.
So almost a time. We'll take one question, sir. A couple of questions, sir.
Okay.
This is one. Is the urban infrastructure inefficient or lagging behind in the majority of the cities in India?
Any other one or two more which I can answer all together?
Okay, and then there is another related questions. How to check the urban decay which will set in?
Okay.
Then Megha Chauhan has asked the reasons for slums to come up and what can be done for the improvements of the life of the peoples there.
Okay, we got these three questions. As far as the third question is concerned, why do slums come up? That's a question I myself posed. I would like you to apply your mind and respond to that. So I won't respond to that question at this stage. The one before was that how to check urban decay. Now, I have painted the overall picture. I'll complete my second part of the talk also, and then we have to arrive at a conclusion. There is no doubt that urban services are not sufficient. Now, why is it decaying? That's an answer you also will have to give, because I can only give the picture as it is. Of course, I have been part of the process, but whether one is succeeding or not, that's a call we have to take at the end of this deliberation. So I won't give an answer at this stage. And the first question was, again, why is urban infrastructure decaying or lagging behind? I think I have given the hints in that direction. The powers are not there, resources are not there, responsibility is not clearly assigned. States probably do not want to part with the powers. States still want to have control. And it's a larger political question also, because we have the elected representatives who go to the assembly, we have the elected representatives who go to parliament, and whether a third level, and I think in one sentence I tried to give an indirect answer to that. Latin American countries, the mayor who is powerful, who does a lot of work, he's straight away a candidate for the presidency of the country. In Bogota and Curitiba, these are two cities where bus rapid transit system was introduced and it became immensely popular. The mayors became popular. So there are situations like that. So we have to try, in a democratic system, you have to find a dividing line between what is the area, what is the performance. And I also refer to a recent mayor becoming chief minister in our country. But subsequently, could he reform the urban system? That is something which is a matter of study. So I'll stop at this without taking any more time, unless Dr. Sanjeev want to say anything further.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. We are extremely thankful to you for such an engrossing and interesting sessions. And we all look forward to the next session on the governance issues on cities and towns. I now request Dr. Amit Joshi, our academic coordinator and head of department, to please propose a vote of thanks.
Before that, Dr. Sanjeev, if
Yes,
I may
sir.
ask you, you could also
Yes, sir.
tell me, does a PPT make a difference? Was it little monotonous to only listen to the talk? That's something which you can tell me in a day or so that if a PPT is required, I have to work accordingly for the second part of it. So that is something which you can tell me.
Okay, I found it interesting, sir. I found it the clarity was there and there was no technical snag. You were very clear on bringing out the issues. Okay. And I'll have a discussion with the students as well, and maybe in a day or two, I'll come back to you, sir, on this. If at all PPT is required.
Okay, back to you.
Otherwise, we found it sessions quite effective and interesting, sir.
Thank you.
I'll request Dr. Amit Joshi to please propose the vote of thanks, sir.
Yeah, I'm there. Am I audible? Give me an
yes.
audibility check, please. Yeah, thank
you.
You.
Are,
thank you. Give man a fish, we feed him for a day. Teach someone to fish, we feed him for lifetime. Your words, Honorable Chancellor, are learning for lifetime. You have always inspired us. We are grateful to you, sir. Governance as projected by you is a strong process in which authority may enact policies, decisions concerning public life, economic, social development. Your experience, ideas, and projections are incredible. Thank you, sir. The points you posed during the webinar will make us ponder. The concept of funds, functions, and functionaries gave us the basic concept of the governance. Some new concepts for which I believe most of us were not so familiar with, like census towns. The whole session was educative and enlightening. You have posed 4 questions for the participants. Why are urban infrastructure services efficient or lagging? Why do slums come up? Question number 3, should all census towns become notified local bodies? And the last was, should we have directly elected mayor or chairperson? Why or why not? Thank you, sir, for enhancing our intellectual ability. We eagerly look forward to your next session scheduled on 22nd July 2020. I also
Thank
pay
you,
my
sir.
gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Mudhu Vinay, and our dynamic Registrar, Brigadier Rajiv Sethi, for their strategic initiatives and directions. I thank Web Series convener, Dr. Sanjeev Malviya, for his coordination. The web series wouldn't have been possible without technical support. Thank you, Akhilesh and Himanshu. I thank the student coordinators, Manishankar Ray and Ajay Singh. We have to keep up the good work and do the same way on 22nd July. Last but not the least, I thank the wonderful participants. We will again meet on 22nd July 2020 at 11 a.m. Till then, stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We look forward to meet on 22nd July, sir, at the same time, 11 a.m.